Welcome everyone to another episode of Around the Block Talk. Today we have with us Mr. Dibyo Majumder. He is the CEO and co-founder at Instaraise, where they're building a DeFi version Tezos and helping multiple projects in their journey. So thank you very much for for being with us today, Dibyo. I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks for the introduction, Prateek, and it's pleasure to be here. And let's start about the topic then.
Sure,
Cool,
sure.
right?
Dibyo. It will be great to hear from you the product strategies and what needs to be done in blockchain product today.
Awesome. So yeah, I'll be covering some of the basics about the product strategy. So first of all, let me introduce myself. So this is Dibyo, and I have been into the product strategy and development in the Web3 ecosystem from 2017. And I have been deeply involved with a lot of projects, built some of my own, and I have been running my own startup now. So specifically, I started off as a developer, and now I had been shifting my career towards learning more about how the product and markets are tallying with each other and making it a successful fit, right? So that's where I started to learn more about things and go in depth. So that's what I'll be sharing today. And today's specifically today we'll be talking about how products are built in the Web3 ecosystem, how it's different, and how the market is reacting to the products that are being built, right? And how to make it more fruitful to the users. So with your go ahead, Prateek, we can start out the session.
Sure, Divya. Excited to hear what you have to share.
Awesome. Cool. Then I'll just be starting off with what a product strategy is, right? So basically, when you think about product strategy, people talks about the product market fit, right? So there are basically two parts in the whole product pyramid, that the product and the market. So these two combination actually is something that makes the whole strategy, right? The strategy means how you are proceeding yourself and how you're building the product so that market reacts to your convenience and you are serving the underserved or unserved needs, right, for the ecosystem. So similarly, from Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3, there has been a significant changes that we can see, right? And if you talk about Web 1, you just had the reading access, right? After the Web 2, you have the reading and writing access. And in the Web 3, what we say, we have a reading, writing, and execution access. So, and that execution is not just about backend execution, but it's more about a financial transaction that are being going behind the scenes. Real money exchange has been done throughout the internet, and no one is governing the whole financial statuses and financial transactions that are being going ahead, right? So this had given a lot of power to the Web3, and that has changed a lot of things that you should be caring about when transitioning from Web 2 product strategy to Web 3 product strategy. So when people say about, hey, product strategy is product strategy, there should be nothing different about Web 3 product strategy. I beg to differ that, right? So there are a lot of things like you never had a tokenomics behind an application going on, right? Now we have that. A whole tokenomics means you are launching your own token, your own currency, right? That poses a value in the real world, right? Specifically virtual world, but it's real money. You can actually liquidate that into cash, and people are actually earning a lot of money from the play to earn games and all the Web3 based apps. So there is a whole lot of different segment to explore when you talk about a Web3 product strategy. And I would say, like, by the end of this whole session, I'll be covering what are the market categorizations we have and why exactly how exactly you are saying the specific market, right? And how you are serving them. So it's basically about I'll be juggling from product to market and market to product, right? To see you, to show you the core relevance of the both the things and how it's different from the Web2 ecosystem. So, so just to clarify, product strategy is all about how you are serving your uh, customers or your target customers the unserved needs, right? The unserved needs should be fulfilled in the end of the day, right? To do that, you have to create a strategy, right? So there are products where uh, that solves a real life problem, that solves a very small real life problem that need to be fulfilled, right? But there are products that shows you that, hey, this is the problem. You are having a problem, real problem, and you should be resolving that using my product, and that will make your life easier, right? So there used to be banking apps, right? Earlier, banking apps used to be there in all the possibly all the banks, right? But uh, when the UPI came, nobody has thought about it, right? UPI came and unified the whole payment infrastructure. So then we have shown the customers like this is the problem that you are facing, right? You have to go through a lot of hustle to do a payment done, and that's where the UPI infrastructure comes in and simplifies the whole process. So there are two segments. This is a very broad classification of the products that you are actually showing the customers what you need and then actually giving them the solution, or you're giving them the direct solution and people already know about it, right? And when we talk about Web3, right, it's more about the second part where you have to show, hey, this is the problem. You can do this much stuffs in the Web3 ecosystem, right? And you can earn money and now take our solution. So this is one of the biggest classification that you used to do first, right? For the Web3 ecosystem, you have to tell the customers about what you need first, right? There are examples like Olympus DAO. So Olympus DAO was something that that concept never existed about how you treat the bonds. So this is the first time this concept came in, and then people realized, hey, this is a very needed utility, right? So then other people started copying. Other people are using those concepts to solve another problem. So this is a whole flow, right? And Web3 comes in this category. So basically, it's all about the build sequence, market reaction, and improvisation. That I would say a whole uh, product strategy means, right? And uh, it's just because just say, right, the monetary things that are involved, like the tokens and the different aspects. So I'll cover up some product segment first to show you like what are the things we have, right? So the first thing you need to do is to categorize what exactly you are building, right? So for example, I would say there are different categories like infrastructure products, tooling products, and then there comes the dApps, right? So tooling is mostly for businesses like B2B businesses, where businesses or dApps are using your tool to serve their audiences, right? Let's say, for example, SaaS products. We at Instaraise are also having a lot of DeFi toolings where different uh, businesses or different dApps can actually use our farms or staking pools and directly deploy it in our platform itself, right? So these comes under tooling. And the next thing is the infrastructure, right? This is the core level of how the blockchains are being built. Let's say Ethereum. Ethereum is an infrastructure project for the Web3, right? Just like that, you have Polygon. Polygon is a layer 2 scaling solution, right? These all are infrastructural products that we can see. And all these categorization I'll be talking about does had a different market segment and how they are reaching to serve the needs of the community, right? So now the third part is the dApps, right? Mostly today I'll be covering about how dApps are making difference and how we should categorize on the dApp level more, right? But to be specific, dApps are something that may or may not have a token, right? It has a base utility for the customers and brings value directly from their application to the users, right? It should be directly customer faced something, and people are using it. Let's say I'll be taking example of Instaraise in more frequent manner. Like, we are a fundraising platform and we are focused for the retail investors. So we started off like that. Now what happens is people and any retail investors can directly participate in the sales that are happening in our platform. That's where we call ourselves a dApp, right? We are serving them the needs. You don't have the access to invest in the projects in a very early stage. We are giving you the access through our portal, right? So that's where the things comes in, right? So when you tell about tooling, infra, and dApps, there are different market segments, right? How you should target the customers you are serving in all the three market segments. I'll give you an example. Let's say you are building a dApp, right? Now, when you are exploring that, who will be our customers, right? Let's say for Instaraise, we are focused on how to serve retail investors, right? So we have made conceptualization like, hey, I want to serve the retail investors. I'll be building all the toolings around it to serve them. Okay, that's totally fine. But when I start to build the community, right? So people are there, retail investors are there, community members from the infrastructure ecosystem are coming to us just because we are building on them. But when a token gets involved, right? Whenever you're building a dApp and a token gets involved, there is a huge difference, right? The customers will be there. A lot of people will be there who are just invested in your project just because you have a token, and they want to take the trading leverage, right? They want to trade your token, they want to track your product, and accordingly how you are performing, they used to make money out of your token in centralized or decentralized exchanges, right? So that's exactly where Web3 ecosystem does have a very varied market segment, right? And uh, you can't actually recognize them like, hey, these are not retail investors. Why they are with us? They're just because of the trading sentiments that we are building around, right? So now you see the difference, right? It's not just the customers you're catering, but there are people who are actually just very much invested in your token, and they want to track you, and they want to just use you just because they want to see how things work when they are invested into a project, right? So just like that, when you talk about tooling, right? Tooling is most of like catering businesses, right? Or dApps for a particular, let's say for a particular tool, like I can give you a vesting. If you have heard about Disperse app, most of the companies use that to distribute tokens, right? So this also had a varied people in it, right? Anyone can use that Disperse app, but you had a focus that you will be catering only the business people and who wants to disperse their token to a very good masses, right? So that's where things are different. Now, coming to the infrastructure, right? So infrastructure projects are something that actually makes a very big difference in terms of the audience that you are catering, right? Let's say from a developer point of view, right? So there are communities, right? And there are community segments, right? How I should mention this? Like, let's say if you are building a tribe for Zostel, right? So Zostel has a great community, and the community has been made just because there are those are people who are digital nomads, maybe, right? And they are very much using Zostel, right? So they became a part of the tribe, right? They are there for a cause, for a single cause specifically. But whenever there is a Web3 community, whenever there is a infrastructure products going on, there are people uh, who are devs, right? Who are contributing to your community. There are traders who are also contributing to your coin attached to your infra, right? There are people who want to invest in your in the products that are being built on your infra, right? So all these market segments, right? So being an infrastructure project means you have to cater each and every market segment that are available, right? So it makes the whole categorization a very big deal, right? Coming back again, I have specified, right, how market segmentations are very much different in all the tooling and the dApps and the infrastructure products. Now, I would specifically go in depth in the dApps, right? Like, what are the things that dApps have, and how you should proceed building a dApp, right? So, specifically talking, I just mentioned earlier also that whenever you are pushing towards dApps, you have to make sure that people can understand it, right? And there is a very niche audience; those will be using your dApp, right? This had to be in your mind. Like, it's something like you have to be very much specific about who are using your dApps. That's the very first question, right? A lot of people who are coming from, let's say, they're core dev, right? And they had the potential to build a lot of things, right? And when they say, like, hey, I'm building something on top of blockchain, right? And it gives you an infra to have the access of the market throughout the world, right? It's a boundaryless thing. Anyone from any corner of the world can use your dApp, right? But it does not prove that this is the thing that gives you a global market, right? There is a huge restriction that you can see in the markets today, not on the basis of the demographics, but on the basis of the on which blockchain you are building on, right? Even if you have a very bigger market, then you can see, like, you have built a dApp and there is a very big market. You have a global market, but only certain people who trust in, let's say, Ethereum, right, would be the subset of the whole Web3 that can actually access your dApp. Other than that, no one is there, right? You don't have a global market in terms of demographics. Whenever you're talking about dApps, you have a global market with respect to the blockchain you're capturing, right? So now there comes a hindrance, and that is one of the biggest thing that people should know about. That whenever you are creating something on top of a blockchain, you, even if you have a global market, you don't have a global market, right? So that's something to look into, and a lot of projects are working on scalability beyond blockchain, where being on other blockchain actually can it can help you to actually interact on some other dApps by staying in your own blockchain ecosystem, right? That's something that's very it's a very cool thing, and that's the multi-chain future people are talking about. So apart from that, I'll just go through like a very specific niche about the dApps that we have. Some of them, I'll just categorize the different level of dApps that we have, right? First category is DeFi. The next category is NFTs. And the third category is play to earn games, right? I specifically make only these three categorization just because they have different set of audiences, right? So whenever I'm doing a categorization in this whole session, it's always dependent on the market and the specific set of people you are serving, right? So let's start with let's see how these are different in terms of how the market segment you're targeting, right? So specifically talking about DeFi. So if you guys know about DeFi, it's specifically the financial sector, right? The financial overwhelming things that are there in the whole crypto ecosystem, you can experience it here, like the DEX, the IDOs, the farms, the staking pools, the projects like Curve Finance, the Convex Finance. These all actually belong to a same category, and you can see people like EDIT farmers, right? Crypto users who want to trade and get good returns out of your platform, they will be the ones you will be serving here, right? No one from the gaming industry, uh, if he is not interested in making more money, would be much more invested in the DeFi ecosystem, right? So that's where the distinction happened. Coming to the NFT ecosystem, right? This is a whole new market segment that you're targeting. NFTs, there are different type of NFTs, right? Technologically, NFTs are being used to make a lot of good things like bonds and all, but I'm not covering that, right? Those comes under DeFi. But whenever you're thinking about NFTs, people just think about arts, right? And how I can flip the arts to make money, right? So it's all about presenting your art to the world and having the ownership, right? So things are very much different when you talk about the NFT people. Even NFT, I have seen a lot of NFT artists and NFT purchasers, right? Uh, NFT buyers specifically, who don't actually know about how should I interact with any DeFi application, right? They just know how to use the application and get their arts out and sell them. They got a new platform, they got a new financial platform to get money. And that's where the NFT ecosystem is very much categorized, right? And Tezos is actually a very NFT rich ecosystem. And people here are a lot more invested in the NFT space. I even popular singers like Mike Shinoda, right, and even F1 Racing, Red Bull, and all those partnerships are being done just on the basis of NFTs, right? So you can see a lot of celebrity intervention are also there in the NFT ecosystem and not into DeFi, right? So now you see, right, the segmentation, how it's happening. The people who you let's say when you talk about DeFi are the people who are more into using Paytm, right? And the NFT ecosystem is more about how you see the film industry, right? You see the film industry. Film industry is all about what you can see how it's going in the NFT ecosystem, right? The next part, specifically, I would say, is the play to earn games. And that's a very interesting thing that's going on in these days, right? So play to earn ecosystems are very much for the ones who wants to play, right? Who are already doing gaming in the Web2 ecosystem. They can now earn, right? They had a whole new economy that's going behind the scenes and incentivizing people to play, right? To play different games. It can be a lottery. And nowadays, there are a lot of games that had a very great graphics. And for those, like you have the character as NFTs, and it's kind of a merge of DeFi and NFT, right? And you can get leverage out of it. And there are very great minds building all those games in the right way to have a better feel, right? And they get a lot of, let's say, kids involved in it, right? The people who are gamers, right? Who didn't had in mind, like I will be using DeFi and NFTs just to do things. They are using it internally in the P2E games, and they're earning a lot more money. So these things, right? The people you are catering makes different market segments in the DApp level itself. Whenever you are building a DApp, the first thing in the mind should be what is the audience you're catering, and that specifically can be DeFi, NFT, or play to earn games. I'm specifically not covering the metaverse ecosystem where people are building. It's all about identity, right? It's all about identity and ownership in the metaverses that had been the different from the Web2 space. In Web2 space, you can also have a metaverse, right? But the metaverse and Web3 had given you the ownership, right, and your identity as a person in the whole metaverse. And people, I have been seeing a lot of companies are having interoperable identities throughout all the metaverses. Like you can go from Decentraland to any of other metaverse that is available, like from the sandbox. So that's really cool, right? That's a very different thing. And whenever you are seeing about how metaverses works and at what segment you cater, you can. I'll tell you a very interesting example where in metaverses I have seen advertisers who are having their character and okay. So yeah. So I was talking about metaverse. In the metaverses, there are a lot of characters who are taking their brand flags and moving around the whole metaverse for an advertisement, right? So these things are making a lot of sense, like whom you're catering. A lot of advertisers are roaming around the metaverses to show people how what their company does and all. It's like a new advertisement industry that people are building out of the metaverses. And that's incredibly awesome. But again, you have to be specific about what are the audience you're catering, right? This is the very specific niche that I'll be talking every time, just because it's the need. You should be watching around whatever you are building, right? You are getting the right audience in it, because that's hard in Web3, right? You just don't want the involvement for your token. Even if you get it, your product is not being used, only the token is being traded. It doesn't provide any value, right? So why it should be used actually, like if it's not giving any value? So that's what it's all about, the categorization on the DApp level. And I'll be mostly covering around the incentivization mechanisms, right? And that's where I feel that would be the end of the session. And it's one of the interesting topics. And whenever I talk about incentivization, right? So it's about the community building, right? So community building and tribe building does have a base of a cause or an incentive, right? Whenever you build a community, there should be a cause, or there should be some incentive for the users to get started, basically, right? And once they come in, they need to get hooked with your product, right? That's how you build communities. So whenever you are building a product, right, you first need to see what audience you are targeting and the what community you want to build in, right? For the specific community, you have to make sure that you incentivize or give them the cause to be a part of your project, right? Because whenever you launch a project in Web3 ecosystem, even if it's a new concept, it takes, let's say, for the next 2 to 3 days, a new UI, and people will start making the same product once and all, right? So you have to be very much specific about how you're incentivizing the community at the same point whenever you are building it, right? So this whole game plan should be something like be added in the token economics of the product, if your product ever had a token, right? Or a revenue sharing model, right? It's not just about when you are building a DeFi application or uh, a dApp in the Web3 ecosystem, right? You're specifically saying it's a decentralized application, and code is actually running it. No central authority is there, right? So why a product should build a treasury for only itself and for the owners who actually build it? It should be for the people, right? So you have to make sure that there should be a revenue sharing model in place that makes things better for the community and let them stick into it. So that's a kind of a roundup, I would say, and we can go in depth more in maybe a later point of time. But yeah, I feel we are good at this point.
Sure, Dibyo. Thank you very much for that informative talk. So, now coming to Web3 products, as you rightly mentioned, you start from the problem, you understand what you're solving. Then you have to build your tokenomics around it, right? Incentivizing mechanisms, and then also trickling down what kind of architecture you want uh, for your implementation, down to the choice of picking up the right blockchain for your product. So, what is this flow that you see, and what are the decisions that need to be made at every step, and what are the questions that need to be answered to actually go from the problem that you're trying to solve right down to the decision of the blockchain that would be needed to ultimately solve that problem?
So that's a very interesting question, actually, right? So whenever you start off with with a product and a solution that you're bringing on the table, right? So whenever you think like this is a new value proposition that you're building, and nobody has that, right? Then you have a open choice for the blockchains, right? You can go in maybe in every blockchain, or you can specifically stick to any of the popular blockchain, right? But then there is a thing called means there comes the community, right? You first need to see where the community is the best, right? If you are catering an NFT project, right? If you're doing an NFT project and you want to get a lot of NFT people involved in your project, so you can choose Tezos, right? Because it has a very good crowd of NFT people around it, right? If you want to go for DeFi and if your product is looking for a very bigger volume, there is no better choice than Ethereum, right? So according to the specific market segment you want to solve, you want first see like what community you're targeting, right? And now then you can actually distinguish like, hey, if the community is NFT community is good here, so I'll be launching a project here. If I need a volume from day one or from the first initial phase, I would go for Ethereum, right? So the community matters the most, right? And the next thing is also like the TPS also matters, right? Whenever you're launching the dApp, you should be means it's a technical categorization, I would say, but whenever you're going for dApp that needs a higher TPS, maybe you can choose Solana, right? So that's where things are different. Like there are needs, right? There are needs from the volume respectiveness fee, right? And the technical aspects. If someone is fulfilling all those things, it doesn't matter. I would say, why don't you just go with Ethereum? So I would say the prime categorization should be the community you're building for, right? And exactly what you need on the first few months of the projects to be done. If you need volume, right? If you go to any random blockchain and let's say your product is on stable coins, right? Like you need stable coins to get incentivize them back, and your the whole blockchain does not have a proper stable coin. So what's the point of going there, right? So these are the kind of categorization that you should have in mind whenever you are looking for a blockchain, right? Uh, in terms of tokenomics, it's one of the things people think like it is the one of the first things that people think like, how should I build a tokenomics? And I would preferably say tokenomics is something that has nothing to do with the blockchains you're serving. You can just create a suitable tokenomics respective of your product and the token flux you want, right? So that's something. And yeah, like there are technical perspectives more right now, and the community perspective is always the first thing I would say when you decide the blockchain.
Indeed. So, particularly addressing the tokenomics aspect. So you need to get several things right over there. You have to build the right incentivizing mechanism so that everyone contributes effectively. You probably have people who are voting for certain things. So you need to get your permissions and your voting mechanisms in place. So I think a number of considerations are required to ensure an effective and working tokenization, token economy. So
Right.
how do you think that can be achieved, and what are the considerations that need to be considered?
Exactly. Like I have been a part of a multiple tokenomics creations. Like let's say from the play to earn games to DeFi applications, right? And a lot of metaverses also, right? So tokenomics plays a key role whenever you are designing your product. And the first thing, as you mentioned, like incentivization mechanism, you have to think beyond like how it would be like after 2 to 3 years, right? You can create something that can actually incentivize feedback and incentivize, because if you're keeping the supply fixed, right, you should have enough treasury for 2 to 3 years, right? But what's after that, right? So there is something very key concept where you give the tokens as rewards. There are multiple provisions to get it back and again give it to them, right? It's a loop that you can create, right? And specifically talking about the tokenomics, the thing that you need to know is about the token flux, basically, right? How much token you're pushing into the market, right? And that's one of the key things, and that's something that matters a lot to the investors when they're investing into the product, right? So you need to make sure that your token flux is gradual. And I have seen a lot of bad tokenomics that actually has a very initial very big flux initially, and then had a downtrend, right? So there are a lot of ways to decide on the tokenomics, but again, it matters a lot. So what type of token you're building, right? As you said, there are different type of tokens, like tokens for the governance, right? For, as you mentioned, there is voting tokens also, right? So voting is something that is like when you're building a DAO, right? And at that moment, the voting is needed. But what I see from my personal perspective, your token should not poses a value if you just want to do a DAO, right? It does not need that. You don't have to provide liquidity just to have a DAO in place. But from my thinking perspective, like you don't, you can't create a DAO from day one. Okay, so even if a lot of uh, decentralized applications are there, right? Where you can see even infrastructures, I would say, a lot name them specifically, but a lot of infrastructures are there who does have all the tokens, let's say 50 to 60% of the tokens in their hand itself, right? And why they're telling themselves as a decentralized platform. So that's something. But whenever you come to designing a DAO token and designing a value posing token, I would say, right, where the price matters a lot, there is a whole different architecture. You don't have to think about the pricing and how it will be at a later point of time in the DAO tokens, right? It's more about how you are distributing the tokens to the users, right? It's about the token flux for a particular people who are into the ecosystem, or who are the investors in a whole platform, right? The first categorization of value positioning tokens, right? And the next kind is the DAO tokens, where you should be more cared about how you are distributing the tokens, so that people are diversified, right? People, same guy is not collecting all the tokens and making your platform centralized. So distribution is one of the main category where you should be thinking when you're designing a DAO token. And on the meantime, you'll be getting a value that's a very upfront, right? People are very much into, hey, why shouldn't I share this token to this guy? And that's where the bonded curve comes in and gives your token price a lift, right? So yeah, so you have to think about everything, like how much liquidity you are providing, how it will be performing after few years as per your projected, let's say, projected performance, and how exactly the token flux is going to be, right? So these all the things are you should be mattering. And to be specific, like about the tokenomics, you can't tell like this tokenomics is perfect for this product, right? Or perfect for DeFi, perfect for NFT games, or like P2A games and all. So every use case should have a different tokenomics, right? And every specific use case, even if in DeFi, right? Even if in P2A games, if it's something like you are creating a metaverse, right? Your tokenomics should be different. There is no framework that you can think of in a similar way, like, hey, this is the framework, your token should be working like this, and this fits for all P2E games. Nothing like that. There is a huge level of categorization, and it's about your gamified approach towards solution. So tokenomics and the whole token part, right, of a product is again a product, I would say, right? So you have to design it in a very different way.
Right, indeed. And coming to another aspect of a product, which would be the UX and UI. So, how do you think that can be adopted for Web3 products? Because some changes would be required from
Obviously.
existing products. So, how do you think that can be done?
So this is one of the interesting things, and I have been looking into this user experience front of the Web3 also, right? So user experience is something that's stopping a lot of users, stopping a lot of naive users to come into the DeFi or in the Web3 ecosystem specifically, right? And that's where, let's say, I don't know if it's around 8% of the total internet traffic is only in the Web3 ecosystem or not. It's not even 8%, I would say, right? And that's where the user experience comes in. And I had specified something like scalability beyond blockchain, right? Like even if I'm in Ethereum, I can interact with any Avalanche app, right? This would be the future of the user experience that we'll be seeing in the coming years, and that's where people are working. It's and at this time, right, whenever these things are getting implemented, that's when my statement with having a global market without having a global market is going to be wrong, right? Then you'll be truly having a global market where even if you're sitting in Ethereum network, you can do a transaction in Avalanche app, right? That's where you can say you have a global market and a truly decentralized application. So
Right.
about that, and one of the interesting things we have been working is gas unification, right? So it's all about how you can unify the gas and bring let's say UPI for the blockchain ecosystem. So what I feel like, if you remove the transaction hassle and from the whole Web3 ecosystem, it would be a different space, right? Where people don't have to think about, hey, I have to pay this much amount, right? I have to pay this much amount for doing this, right? There is a gas fee associated with Avalanche. There is a gas fee associated with Tezos. There is a gas fee with Ethereum. All these three things like Ether, AVAX, and XTZ, I have to go through a whole loop of getting from a centralized exchanges to my wallet to do a transaction. People don't want this whole flow, right? This is a very big hindrance that we see right now. And a lot of platforms are doing uh, gasless transactions, but it's just not about gaslessness. Whenever you say gasless transaction, mean it's something like you are putting in the user's head, hey, there is something called gas in the uh, when you're interacting, right? And then you have to think about, hey, how the gas is being paid and how the things are going in this, right? So why don't we remove the hassle of gas fee, right? So I feel this movement towards let's not. I would not say it's a gas-free environment, but it will always have a gas just because it's used for the network security, right? But this hassle should not be there in the user front, right? There should be some way businesses takes care of these things, and those would be the next generation infrastructure projects or tool providers who will be the key reasons of the main adoption of the Web3 ecosystem.
Right, certainly. So now coming to your own startup, which is Instaraise. So how did you actually went about building the product for your own startup, and what were the considerations there, and what kind of problems you see is solving?
So I'll tell a bit of the journey, right, that we had. So IDEO launchpads were the concepts that were still going on the last year and last years, right? So when we onboarded into the Tezos ecosystem, we found a gap, right? Hey, there is nothing like an IDEO launchpad into the Tezos ecosystem, right? And we started off with that. Like we found a gap and we started off with that, and we created a whole gamified approach of how our token would be used to give the best to the retail investors and not to the VCs, right? So retail investors can actually come in to the ecosystem to Instaraise and invest XTZs for a pre-sale tokens, right? So we started off as an IDEO launchpad initially, and that's where we got into thinking like what more can be done, right? So that's where we started off, like creating small DeFi Legos like farming provisions, staking provisions, right? All the things that are needed to launch a startup, right? To launch a product. Then what happened is we had a hunch, right? Why don't we build a whole funnel for product launching in Tezos ecosystem, right? Now what we do is we had a whole funnel, like from starting from the IDEO launchpad to DeFi Legos that are needed after launching a token to the DEX launch, right? We are only building a single asset liquidity provisioning and impermanent loss protected DEX, right, in our own platform, where we actually complete the whole flow, right? You start with an IDEO launchpad, use the DeFi Legos, and also list yourself in our own DEX. So this flow, we want to take it forward for the Tezos ecosystem so that more people can come and build into the Tezos, right? So we are kind of a big product studio that can help you with every aspect of the project launch. We specifically tell it like we define your project to product journey, right? And there is a huge difference, just because when it's a project, it's good for a project, right? But when it's a product, people are expecting a lot of things from it, right? There is a token associated with your product. Why people should buy your token? We help them draft their tokenomics. We help with the technical specifications if then, right? We help them with the marketing. We already have built a bigger community of Tezos influence people who can actually help actually help new projects to know, like it's a, whenever you come to us, you already get a very big community where you can handpick the best, and according to your market segment, you're hitting it, right? So you get a bigger exposure to the community, and we are helping also with the marketing. So it's a all-in-all solution for what we provide at Instaraise as a product studio, and with the whole funnel we have developed till now.
Right. That's great to know. So is that a SaaS product you have, or you provide service? How is it?
So it's basically a service, because people come to us for an idea or product, for the product launch, right? So there is a big thing, like we have to do a due diligence in place, right? We can't actually serve every project and let our retail investors who are trusting on us to invest on anything that can be a scam, right? So we make sure the project is legit, and we actually, after that only, we help it. So it's basically, as of now, is as a service, but as the maturity grows, as more projects comes in, we'll be moving towards the SaaS model. But there would be something like, this is a verified project, this is not verified project. So things like that would be there, but it's now as a service, but it would be a SaaS as the things gets more mature.
Okay, great. And so, what kind of clients do you have today, and what kind of traffic are you getting?
So specifically, the traffic is huge. I would say it's like, it's not on a daily basis traffic, just because whenever there is a project that's coming in, then only the traffic comes, right? So as of I can say, like, our customers, right, are the projects that want to get launched in the Tezos ecosystem, and the users are the retail investors. So there is a classification between the customers and the users, right? And whenever we talk about the ideas that we did, right? So let's say I'll talk about our own idea. That's the first idea we did, right? And that's around, we have raised $90,000 in less than a minute, actually. All the transactions for the sale of our token were in a single block of Tezos, right? So our customer hitting rate is very much varied as per the projects that we are having. So it's not a daily using a DApp that you can say, right? So yeah.
Right. So, also, why did you choose Pesos in particular? And so, since you're a service company, I believe you understand Web3 products. You can probably expand to other blockchains as well. So, why Pesos in particular?
That's a great question. Like whenever we had the thought, like when we started off, right, we had a thought. There is a gap in the Tezos ecosystem that doesn't have an ideal launchpad. We started off with that, and as of the thing grows, what we can see, a lot of project traction is coming into this Tezos ecosystem. So we have now specified our niche that will be specifically serving the Tezos ecosystem for this much of time, right? And it's not something like we are not interested in any other platforms that are having project launches. We had a vision of going multi-chain, right? But there is no point of going in other chains before you get a very big success rate in one of those, right? You don't have the credibility to go. So what I feel, we empower more projects in Tezos ecosystem and we do it right, right? And after that, we serve a meaningful amount, right? And we are a revenue generator. We had a revenue generative model internally in a means, I would say, specifically very good revenue generative model as per our targets. Then we'll be moving to the multi-chain future that we are talking about. It's the switch around. This switch is not a very difficult step, right? But you should know when you are taking it. So that's how we are thinking things right now. I feel I can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. So
Yeah,
like start with your core expertise and then eventually expand. That is how
yeah,
you're seeing it.
exactly.
So, and also, we would really like to understand what kind of ecosystem is building on Tezos today. What kind of projects are coming up? So, other options that people might have would be Polygon or Ethereum itself, Hyperledger. These are the popular frameworks out today. So, what kind of ecosystem is coming on Tezos, and what do you think are the USPs of Tezos as a blockchain, which is driving its adoption?
Exactly. So people are aware, like Tezos, as I can see, is one of the most advanced blockchain that ever existed, right? So you have been seeing a lot of upgrades in different networks, right? What Ethereum will be after the upgrade, Tezos was there a lot earlier, right? And every ecosystem that you can see does have an upgrading process, right? Where the foundation is responsible to do the upgrade, and the people supports it, right? Like people like in that sense, the people are the validators. If the validators are supporting the foundation, then they are good with the upgrade, right? But the thing is, foundation decides when to upgrade or when to not, right? And if I say specifically, Ethereum does have a great foundation, and but what I see, changing the consensus algorithm, changing the tech stack uh, from POW to POS for Ethereum is like changing a engine in a flying plane, right? And that's where my eyes got into Tezos, right? I was a part of the Ethereum upgrade earlier, right? I was working on the Casper upgrade. So, but after I have seen Tezos, I can specifically see some features like self-amendability, right? These are the USPs. There are two USPs specifically: self-amendability and on-chain governance, right? Anyone, right? Anyone as a validator or can propose a network upgrade. Hey, we want this upgrade in the this upgrade. You can have a list, right? You also have to show the technical feasibility out of it, right? And there is a voting process that happens on chain, right? And this on chain voting actually decides the upgrade should go up or not, right? And this whole process is totally automatic, right? This from the start of the voting period to the end of the amendment of the protocol and changing the whole protocol, the whole process is totally automatic, right? If they are crossing this step, the next step started. That's how a real decentralized autonomous organization works, right? So all the whole process, right, is done through the voting and how how people want to see it. That's why people say Tezos is built to be the last blockchain, right? That people are ever seeing. So every let's say 2 months there is an upgrade, and there is a significant upgrade like block time is half, right? Means there is a this much code level of change that is happening in Tezos ecosystem. And the biggest fact is foundation is not the only ones who are proposing the upgrades. In the last two upgrades, it was not the foundation who decided to upgrade the network, right? And it's something proposed by a research lab, and that got approved, and that whole process got self-amended, and we are using it right now, right? So the upgrading process is so much smooth when you have an upgradable nature, right? And the whole thing can be controlled by public itself. That's where I see the future lies, right? So that's how things started, and that's how things are, and that's how things would be going further, right? And as of the market segment it is what I see, the projects that are getting built are enormous. A good play to earn games. A lot of games are getting built just because those have a good TPS. And as of the advent, a lot of DeFi platforms are already there with us, right? There are a lot of DEXs. Stable coins are coming in, right? That brings most of the volume, as you know. And the lending and borrowing protocol are going to launch very soon. Like two different projects are coming up with the lending and borrowing protocols. And I feel that would be the initial liquidity push for the whole ecosystem. And what I see, like the main focus does have NFTs, right? At this moment of time, let's say a lot of celebrities, whenever they are launching their NFTs and are aware of the Tezos blockchain, they are choosing Tezos out of anything, right? So NFTs are booming right here. DeFi has already started, and a lot of even USDT is coming into Tezos. Just the news came in, so traction is coming in. DeFi, pay to earn, and NFTs are all there, and it's gonna stay.
Sure, Dibyo. So with that, thank you very much for your time and appearing on the talk show. It was indeed very informative and entertaining. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot, Prateek.